Hey everyone, welcome back to What Happens in Vegas podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Canestrero. Today we have an amazing guest, Kelly Bento, and I don't usually read the full intro, but I love her bio, so I'm going to read it right now. Kelly Bento is the visionary founder of Soleil Well, a cutting-edge wellness company revolutionizing red light therapy with medical-grade safety, scientific rigor, and aesthetic design, with a deep-rooted belief that light is not just an environmental factor, but a foundational nutrient. Kelly created Soleil Well to empower people to reclaim their health through intelligent and safe light exposure. Certified in quantum biology, Kelly is an expert in the intersection of circadian rhythm, mitochondrial health, and lifestyle medicine. Her work is grounded in the emerging science of light as information, exploring how the timing, type, and intensity of light directly influences everything from cellular hydration to metabolic function. Drawing on years of study in chronobiology, she helps others optimize in daily routines, environments, and technologies to align with natural biological rhythms. Blending scientific precision with intuitive wisdom, Kelly is at the forefront of modern circadian wellness movement, proving that light isn't just what we see, it's what shapes what we become. Light is the software that runs the hardware of the human body. Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I
Looking
mean,
forward to this.
yeah, this your bio speaks to me so much because, I had to go through a really hard time to learn what you're saying and have light benefit me so much. Like I went through severe Lyme disease, which we had a little conversation. But first of all, thank you so much. We're going to jump into what it is that you've created and why I'm so also passionate about it. But we met through one of the hockey players that utilizes your red light, and he's always connecting me and I'm always connecting him with what we think is really going to help move the needle for people. So let's just talk a little bit about how you even got into this and how you got so passionate about red light, and then we'll dive into all of the information about your red light.
Sure. So I like to say that what brings people to learn to really study something very deeply is either crisis or curiosity. For me, it was a little bit of both. I have a science background and as a dental practitioner, and so I always just had this thirst for science and understanding it and health and wellness. And certainly, especially when I became a mother, that became, my most important mission was to create a healthy home and to raise healthy children. But then unfortunately, 14 years ago, my brother suffered a brain injury due to medical error. And that just threw me into recognizing uh, a lot of the limitations and a lot of the issues in our current healthcare, but also understanding that I needed to go further and I needed to find something when the best hospitals in the country, I'm here in Boston, the best hospitals in the country sort of hand us back my 47-year-old brother and say, this is as good as it'll ever get. And he probably has a 3 to 4 year lifespan with this level of injury. I was absolutely unwilling to accept that as the reality. And I knew that I could help him. And so it started me down this just very deep rabbit hole. I was fortunate enough to have already been dabbling in, but started to understand much more deeply a lot of the work of Dr. Jack Kruse that he was putting out regarding circadian rhythm and also red light therapy, photobiomodulation. And so I was able to actually have a conversation with him, and he said to me, being a neurosurgeon, he said to me, your brother needs red light and a lot of it. And I thought, okay, that was that little spark that I needed to go very, very deeply into it. And so for about 7 years, that's literally all I studied. It just became such an insane passion of mine and such a focused area of research and understanding and understanding the application and all of that. And so I was then working for a biological medical dental facility in Rhode Island, very cutting edge, amazing facility. And I was being tasked with bringing red light therapy into the clinic for our medical and dental patients. And that's when I started to vet the different companies. And it's like most industries. When you peek behind the curtain in most
Mhm,
industries, you're going to see the issues. And my first question in understanding the mitochondria as an ultimate environment sensor, my first and foremost question to these companies was, how are you testing your panel?
mhm,
Needing to know that first the quality control was there, and that was alarming to me, because I found out that everyone is manufacturing in China and
mhm,
everyone is simply drop shipping from the manufacturer, and
mhm,
the companies they'll pay a quality control engineer that ultimately works for the factory. Doesn't The quality engineers don't work for them.
mhm,
My husband had over 30 years of manufacturing experience. He's a golf shoe designer, and so he had dealt with Chinese manufacturing for all of his career. And he was sharing with me, like, no, 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 that's not how it works, and that's not something anyone should be trusting. And so immediately I just thought, wait a second, this is an issue. I can't trust any of these companies for myself, for my brother, or
mhm,
for my patients. And
mhm,
so I have a lot of very encouraging friends that said, you know more about this than anyone I know. You should do this. And I was
mhm,
hesitant because I'm not a business person. I'm not a manufacturer, but I am a clinician. And my ultimate, and being a clinician, your drive is the patient presents in front of you, and what do you need to do to get them better and to help them as best you can. And so that was my goal, was to create the safest, most effective red light therapy that I could, and then to
mhm,
also be very diligent about testing that. And
mhm.
so I do manufacture in China, as does everyone at this
Yeah.
moment anyway, and everything comes to me. I manufacture in very small numbers so that I can fully control the quality, and everything comes directly to me. I do not drop ship to anyone. Everything comes to me. I unbox and I test every single product that I am shipping to someone. I
Mhm,
treat I treat everything as if I'm the one that's using it or my brother is the one that's using it. My utmost focus is on creating effective but safe red light therapy products. And I can tell you, with as diligent as my testing is, I'm always finding things, always.
mhm,
And I've
mhm,
had numbers upon numbers of products that I absolutely reject.
mhm,
And that just continues to reaffirm to me the importance of testing and not trusting. And then, as far as the innovation, understanding light and how to use light and
mhm,
how effective a treatment it is. I'm always creating, what do I want to use? What do I think is going to be most beneficial for myself, for my patients? And that's, like I said, ultimately what drives the innovation component. I'm lucky enough to be married to an absolute genius when it comes to design and development, and where I can sort of sit and come up with these ideas of, oh, okay, I want it to do this and I want it to do that. And, he can just sort of sit and create and design anything that I sort of think of. So it's really fun. Okay. Yeah, so my husband is an absolute genius designer. He holds 30 patents, and he's just really amazing, where I can sit and I can talk about ideas as far as what do I want, what would I want to use, and then he's able to bring it bring it to life for me, which is, it's fun. It's fun to have built a family with him, and now it's fun to build a business with him.
Yeah. So tell me, what is it that you're testing on the red light that makes it unsafe? Because, first of all, some people won't even know what red light is. So we can talk about what it is, why it's important, and why we're lacking it, and then kind of what you're testing on the lights to make sure that they're safe.
Sure. Light is, like I said in that quote that I often use in podcasts, it's the software that runs the hardware of the human body. It's sort of the program. It sets your circadian rhythm, but it also has the capacity for healing, which is photobiomodulation. Photo being photons of light, bio meaning your biology, and modulation meaning it can elicit a change. And so it's actually able to do a number of things within the body. And we're now stepping into a really interesting time in research and in healthcare, where we're really understanding the effect that light has on our biology from both aspects, from the addition of a modality like red light therapy, and also the elimination and the removal of excessive blue light exposure as well. So it's kind of twofold. I've heard Glenn Jeffries, the researcher, say that blue light discharges the membrane and red light will recharge the membrane. And so
Mhm.
that's a really important aspect of the ability and the effect that light has on our body. So a lot of people are using photobiomodulation for many different reasons. I have patients in their 90s that are utilizing it for health and wellness and for pain control for things like arthritic conditions, autoimmune conditions, and certainly a lot of athletes are utilizing it in the realm of recovery, restoration, recovery. The ability to put direct energy into the system is what photobiomodulation is able to do. So someone like an athlete, to try to eat enough food to compensate for the amount of energy that they're expending through training, it's impossible. And that's where light can step in and fill that void. And the amazing thing with light is it's able to stimulate the mitochondria to produce energy with 100% efficiency. There's
Mhm.
there's really nothing else that we have that can do that other than photonic energy. First and foremost, I always will say to everyone, get as much sunlight as you can. That is
Mhm.
the ultimate.
Mhm.
That is the goal, is to always do that. And being able to add in a modality, a new technology like photobiomodulation, it's a terrific adjunct therapy. But first and foremost, my advice is always, always to seek natural sunlight as your ultimate source of light therapy.
And I know for myself, like things that made it obvious, like when I was really sick and I would do a round of red light, it would help soothe my nervous system, like take pain away, all of these things like that. It was very obvious. And I work with athletes. So then I would get them on it just for recovery and then for healing and see these huge changes. And I would explain to them it's like a vitamin for your mitochondria, and their mitochondria doesn't get enough support. And we started testing their mitochondria and seeing how much like these things we were adding in were actually giving their mitochondria more efficiency. So what you talked to me when we were talking last time about some of like the different wavelengths and what they do. Like you're diving into all of that. So can we explain some of that?
So the typically in most red light therapy products, they usually will utilize 2 to 4 wavelengths. Typically, it's 1 or 2 in the red spectrum, which are within the 600 nanometer. Those are more surface. That's the visible red light spectrum, and those tend to be more surface absorption, penetration depth. And then you go deeper into the near infrared spectrum, and those are the wavelengths. Anything above about 760 nanometers steps you then into the near infrared spectrum of light. And that's when you're going to get very much deeper penetration depth into the deeper tissue, into the muscle, even into the bone. There's a lot of discussion now that near infrared actually penetrates through the entire body. It's very hard to test the penetration depth. It's sort of always been talked about, but not fully understood as far as penetration depth. But I think over the next couple of years, we're really going to figure that out and find that it certainly goes much deeper than we ever thought was possible. And I'm really excited about the work of Scott Zimmerman, who is talking about when sunlight hits the earth, the visible spectrum of light, everything that is visible to our eyes, gets absorbed by the vegetation. It's getting absorbed by the plants and the trees and the grass and everything around us. And the near infrared spectrum is fully reflected. That's why when you touch a plant, the plant leaves they stay cool, because they're
Mhm.
not absorbing that infrared, they're reflecting it onto us. So
Mhm.
the belief is that the light spectrum that as humans we're actually absorbing is about 80 to 90% in the near infrared spectrum, which is amazing to think of, that nature designed to not absorb that near infrared spectrum, and it designed to reflect it all so that us as humans absorb that. And that's what makes nature bathing and walking through the forest so beneficial, is you're getting all of that reflection of the near infrared
Mhm.
onto you, and it's just profoundly beneficial for the human body. So we're starting to really understand that deficiency, that near infrared deficiency, and
Mhm.
also the change from incandescent light bulbs into LED light bulbs, which are fully incandescent, contain a lot of near infrared. LEDs contain no infrared.
Mhm.
So not only are we deficient in time spent outside and all of that near infrared light that we're supposed to be getting from nature, but then when we do spend time inside, we're also completely void of all near infrared. So
Mhm.
this is a light frequency that as humans from the beginning of time we are designed to be bathed in near infrared from the moment the sun comes up to the moment the sun goes down.
Mhm.
So if you were to think about that, every single minute of your life, you're supposed to be exposed to near infrared. When you're inside, you're not getting any of it. And so
Yeah.
when we know that people are spending 94 to 96% of their time inside, you can start to really understand that there is a crisis, and the
Mm.
crisis is in a near infrared deficiency.
Yeah. And even the difference in blue light that you get from outside versus like from our screens above head now from our LED lights, like, and then the release of cortisol that happens as a reaction to that. Like, no wonder we're sick and tired and like having all
And
of these.
diabetic and depressed.
Yeah, and so it's funny how it all goes back to nature, like, they've always had it right, and the more we separate from it, like, the more problems we have, but we're in a modern day life, so we need tools like yours where we can bring this inside with us, and it can help even in the winter too for, like, people who get really depressed then because you can get these photons of light. So, yeah, it's
Mhm.
really, like, is really powerful, and I honestly think everyone should have a tool like this in their house, especially with how separated we are from nature and getting enough, and then what do we do when we go outside too? Everybody slathers on sunscreen and puts on
Yeah.
sunglasses, right? And so here we
Right.
are just, like, blocking out the very things that could help us, right? So
Yes.
now we'll talk about, so you talked about how you measured a lot of the other companies' lights, right? Light panels. You
Mhm.
also have the light bed, and you have the
Yeah.
torch that you can use in individual areas, which I still, after we talked, I was gonna get mine immediately, and then life happened, and I'm very excited to use it because, like I said, when I speak to the player that we have in common, like, and whenever he raves about something, I know that it's amazing. So, but what is it that you found with these other light panels? That was it, because I know a little bit about flicker and stuff, but other people won't. And like, so what are you measuring to make sure that these are safe for if we're going to use them as a supplement?
Right. I measure flickers because I mean flicker is an important metric to measure, and because in nature the sunlight does not flicker. And so the
No.
only flickering of light that we as humans ever would have experienced would have been when we were maybe running through the woods, and the flickering of the light through the trees. So that's a very cortisol driven
Mm,
information to the human body. If light is flickering, something is happening here.
mhm.
So flicker is important. And so I measure flicker, and everything that I create has zero flicker and electric field. So anything that's plugged into the wall has the potential to have a very high electrical field.
Yeah.
We know that this is very bad. That is a very bad signal to your mitochondria that
Mhm.
can absolutely pick up on that and assess that as being a very dangerous environment to be in, because we're
Mhm.
not supposed to be exposed to very high electrical fields. And
Mhm.
so I test the electrical fields, and then I also test the magnetic field. So that's EMFs, so electric mag and magnetic field. So I test both of those using some sensitive meters. I also test for dirty electricity, which no one is doing, but that's something that is also really important to be testing for.
Mhm.
And I had a good friend of mine that is a building biologist. He came here 2 years ago. He stayed with me for 5 days and he tested everything. He has highly, highly sensitive meters. And I had him test everything at every configuration: 1 panel, 2 panel, 3 panel, 4 panels together, which is what a lot of the athletes are using. I had to absolutely make sure that everything was as safe as possible. And
Mhm.
so he tested everything, and basically he concluded, he said, that's what I want to stand in front of. That's the one that I want to use. And I thought, great, perfect.
Mhm.
I had accomplished exactly what I wanted to accomplish. And so, those are important metrics. Like I said, your mitochondria will pick up on that. And if you're using a panel that has not been fully tested, the propensity for your mitochondria to sense that core environment, instead of producing more energy, instead of sort of revving up like, oh yeah, this is good information, your mitochondria will start to shut down, saying, oh, whoa, wait a second, let's conserve. This is not a safe
Yeah.
environment to be in. So your goal in using something like red light therapy, if it's not safe, you could end that treatment in a worse situation than had you not done the treatment at all. And my focus with the mat that's sort of right back there,
Yeah.
that's something that, like, first and foremost, the safety of the mat had to be there, because that's in direct contact. So something like a panel, you're typically at 6 to 12 inches away from a panel, but the mat, you're laying directly on that. So that had to be zero.
Mhm.
And thankfully, through proper engineering, and I was able to get the irradiance up to a therapeutic level without compromising the safety. So the mat measures at zero electrical and magnetic fields, which is it's quite a feat to be able to do that.
That's amazing because we were talking about, how much those full bed panels are. Like they can go upwards of like $150,000 for the ones where you're in a
Hmm.
full bed. And yours is,
Yeah.
you're covering the whole surface area of the body and it's a fraction of that. And we know it's the safe it's emitting
Right.
safe light. So I mean, I was very excited when you were telling me everything when we were talking. And I know you were talking about the cell danger response, right? So you're saying light
Yeah.
can cause the mitochondria to go into that kind of hibernation mode. And that's never good
Right.
for any health problem, or it's going to cause some. So that's what you're talking about there. Do you think anyone has I think you've already covered this. You don't think anyone has too much red light or a need for blue light these days?
Blue light in nature does not
Yes.
exist unless it's paired with red light. So
Yes. Yes.
red light in nature does exist. Rich
Yes.
red light exists at sunrise and at sunset.
Mhm.
But blue light is sort of it starts in the morning and then it kind of ramps up and it has this crescendo effect in the around, and then it starts to drop down again. But red is always present when there
Mhm.
is blue light. So
Mhm.
to be overly exposed to blue is completely unnatural. There's always been the discussion of junk light is as bad for you as junk food.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true. But it's so foreign. Your body doesn't even understand what to do with that. It's an alien sun
Yeah.
that it can't process that information other than to perceive it as a threat, as a
Mhm.
cortisol driver. And it absolutely trashes melatonin. Whereas red light will actually drive your melatonin production. It will help
Mhm.
your mitochondria produce that intracellular melatonin, which is so beneficial at ultimately protecting you from everything, from every Neolithic disease and condition that we are, currently susceptible to.
Mhm.
Optimizing your melatonin is of the utmost importance. So controlling the amount of excessive blue light that you're exposed to and then adding in red light simply from the melatonin standpoint is really vital.
Melatonin is another thing that I utilize a lot, and it helped me get through some really tough times because with chronic disease, there is like a decrease in the MSH, which is melanocyte stimulating hormone. And
Right.
so, again, this is another reason why maybe red light made me feel so good. But another thing that you kind of clicked in my mind when you were talking about your body sees it as a threat. Well, the people that I am working with that are in their chronic state still, their immune hasn't switched back on where they're in a proper inflammatory load. When they go into grocery stores or like those big box stores where you have that light, they're having to leave. They feel like they're going to have a panic attack, they're getting dizzy and they can't go into those stores. So this is
Mhm.
one of those like obvious like moments where your body is already at this threshold where it can't handle more, and when you go into that threatening state, you're going to panic mode. That is like the
Mhm.
perfect thing where, you go home and at least balance it with this red light or get outside. Like, people have to wear sunglasses when they're in there to be able to go, or blue blocking glasses to even go into the grocery store, but it still gets in because it's coming all from ahead. Gets in behind the glasses. So we're seeing that like firsthand.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest places that people can't go into when they're going through this chronic complex illness phases where they're not fully healed or they're in the middle of detox or whatnot.
Right. And your body is covered. Your skin is you're covered in photoreceptors. So it's
Yes.
your body is always taking in that information around you and
Mhm.
processing it. Either it's safe, a safe space and safe for to drop you into that parasympathetic, or it's gonna stress you, and it's
Yeah.
gonna activate that cell danger response and drive that
Yeah.
cortisol and just
Mhm.
make you feel absolutely awful. And it's
Yeah.
interesting now that we are having these conversations and that people, the public can now understand that, wait a second, the light is an important factor, and
Mhm.
that's something that you can control.
Mhm. Yeah, you can control it. Like, there's, like, all these companies too coming out with light bulbs that are safer that you can change to a more red light at night.
Yeah,
I have a little lamp. The only lamp I have that I walk around with as a night light is, like, pure red light. It's not and it doesn't wake you up. Like, think about if you're sleeping and someone turns on those overhead lights and you're like, and people just wanna cover their head because it's not your body's telling you, like, it's not
right.
good, right?
Right.
So,
It's an
yeah,
actual
those
it feels like an actual assault,
yeah,
you know? It really you actually feel, especially when you start to control your light environment, and my husband says this all the time because I have controlled the light environment in my home for over a decade. And
mhm,
so now if we go to someone else's house or if we go out at night, we all bring our blue blocking glasses
yeah,
and wear them. It's just something that we do because you really don't feel good when you're in those environments. Once you've extracted that assault from your life, when you are exposed to it, that's when you really recognize, like, wow, that is terrible.
yeah, yeah, I know, and, I was at a point where I couldn't have it like, my heart would race, like, especially, like, I was one of those people that couldn't be around it, and, like, I remember my parents changed lights in their bathroom, and they were these, like, bright ones, like, shining right at me, and I like, couldn't have them on, and,
Yeah.
like, so I like that I'm at the point where, like, I can see them and it's not gonna put me into a tailspin. I wanna be an
Right.
adaptable human, right? But, like,
Right.
just if you're one of those people and you're feeling these types of things, like, your body's telling you something, right? The reason I asked
Mhm.
about the blue light is because I actually had an athlete get told that he was deficient in blue light and he needed more blue light, and I was like,
What?
"Mm, I don't
What?
know. I don't know about
Maybe
that."
it sounds like he probably would need more sunlight, but
Yes.
I would
100% more sunlight.
never say blue light.
They said
That's like
blue
saying
light.
you're deficient in candy. I mean,
I know. I know. So yeah. And then, I mean, I learned a lot about other light therapies too, based on my Lyme because green light is known to kill Lyme disease. So I
mhm,
thought that I had a watch and it had like a green light setting radiating your veins with the green light in order to kill Lymes. We're missing this big component. And if you think about even in a hospital when you're trying to heal, the type of lighting that you have, the type of food you have, like, there used to be at hospitals like areas where you rolled people outside so they got sunlight
right.
so they could heal. Like I just think of all the people that you know, aren't getting that. It's like add some red lights to hospitals and oh my gosh,
Mhm.
maybe people will heal. Like I don't know. Like just to me it's like we're missing the basics and the foundations. Yeah, these
I think the key there is simply just educate the public to take
Mhm,
ownership of their light environment and to
mhm.
make the changes in the home. My kids have grown up. My kids are 20 and 23, and they've grown up wearing blue blocking glasses, and they've
Yeah.
grown up with red light bulbs at night, and all of the bulbs in our house are incandescent bulbs. And inside our refrigerator, I disassembled most of the LEDs, the harsh LEDs in there. And what I did have to keep, I just covered with red tailgate tape. So that when
Mhm.
you open the fridge at night, it's not this assault
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
blue light. So,
Even on my phone, I made it so you can go in and pick find the crayon setting, and I made mine as, like, very red based, like, all the time, not just at night, just because
right.
I don't need any extra that I'm staring at, like and, you know, you talked about EMF too, and, when we were talking before, like, I told you how much electricity affected me, right? Like, so when
Yeah.
I was going through all the Lyme and, you know, just when you have Lyme and I had a mold exposure, like, mold makes you, first of all, already more static, more
Yeah.
electric, more polarized, right? Because it changes, like, the salt base on your skin because it's a diuretic. So you become more sensitive to EMFs, and I was always sensitive to them, but I didn't it was my aha moment again is always so obvious. They put a wireless heart monitor on me when I didn't know that I had the Lyme carditis, and I was just, like, in a panic state. I've never felt this before, and so I let them put it on me, and I, like, short-circuited that machine, but also it made me way more sick. So I went just from heart
Mhm.
pain to then kidney pain and liver pain and even more static electric, like, feelings
Wow.
and, you know? So the fact that you're talking about testing for, like, even dirty electricity and flicker and all that, spoke to me so much, being someone who's so sensitive to those things, and other people don't feel those things or they don't have this obvious experience like I did, where they
Right.
actually can grasp that aha moment. So I just hope us telling you now can be like, start to limit these things, right? Like, even
Mhm.
I don't know what you've done for your Wi-Fi, but you can hardwire it or you can even do like adapters that make it less that it's coming at you because they even created more direct waves, like a man-made frequency. So you talk about photons on your skin. Well, now we're getting all these other inundated with all these other noise that we can't hear, right? Like,
Right.
but and some people can feel, but it absorbs in our body through our skin. And I'm talking about like 5G right now, but
Mhm.
if you read the research, they're like, oh no, it's safe because it only penetrates 1 to 2 millimeters in your
Yeah.
skin. But what's there? Your sweat glands. And what does sweat
Mhm.
glands have access to? The rest of your body, the organs, all of that. So, you know, whatever we can counterbalance with cleaner energy, cleaner photons, less of these things and, you know, tending to your circadian rhythm, like that is
Right.
100%. So some of the things you're talking about, all the red lights at night, you know, blue blocking glasses. What else do we do to tend to our circadian rhythm? What can people do?
I mean, what sets it is that sunrise
Yeah.
exposure. Getting outside first thing in the morning. That just primes your system to function optimally throughout the day.
Mhm.
And I mean that is vital. That is a non-negotiable. I never miss sunrise no matter where I am, no matter what the temperature here in Boston. We don't get that many months of nice pleasurable weather. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I'm out there with as little clothing on as possible. I always will expose my gut always to that
Mhm.
early morning light. That's very beneficial for gut health.
Mhm.
And I get out there and I ground and, that's the first 30 minutes of my day every single day, regardless of the weather. And, I mean, typically after I do that, that's when I would come in. If it's a day that I'm in the office and I'm seeing patients, that would be the time after I've gotten that morning. The priority is natural sunlight. After I've come in the morning, that's when I would do my red light therapy because morning red light therapy, it syncs with what nature has designed. And I do believe that over the next 10, we will start to uncover that there is a circadian component to red light therapy. I think, and some studies have already shown it. Glenn Jeffries has shown that in his eye health research with red light therapy, that it was shown to be more effective when the treatment was done in the morning. So I do believe moving forward, the research is going to show that it is most effective at the time when your body would be expecting to receive richer red wavelengths in nature, which would be at sunrise and at sunset. So I always try to coordinate as best I can in my schedule to doing my red light therapy in the morning, because that's going to prime your mitochondria. That's like getting it ready to just go out, conquer your day. It's going to help an athlete certainly with performance for that day. You'll get the most mitochondrial output about 3 to 6 hours after red light therapy. Doing it, sort of timing it within your day that way is great. But then also with a lot of the players and a lot of the patients that are using the mat, typically in the past, my recommendation for using red light therapy at night, I was always very, very conservative. And if I had a patient I was working with or an athlete I was working with that was having trouble sleeping, I would have them do red light therapy, but only near infrared, which is it's deeper penetrating, but it's not that intense red that you visually see coming off a panel. So I would have them use only the setting of near infrared, which would help them stimulate that melatonin, help to drop the cortisol to stimulate the melatonin.
Mhm.
Because I didn't want that intense light coming through the eye. But now with the development of the mat, I do have a lot of patients and certainly a lot of athletes using it at night, and everyone is reporting the same. It is actually able to drop that cortisol, drop them into that parasympathetic tone of rest, recovery. Everyone is sleeping better. They're recovering better. From the sympathetic into the parasympathetic has been just unbelievably beneficial in using the mat and using it at night. Like I said, which I typically was a little hesitant to do that, and understanding that red light can be very overly stimulating for a lot of people. But the near infrared setting on the panels and the using the mat at night is able to you're able to sort of get both. You get both benefits. You're able to sort of get that invigoration and that bump of energy using it earlier, and then you're able to get that more relaxing effect at night.
Yeah, and sometimes things are just more theoretical too, but anecdotally, I see people, it helps them so much. And I'm really excited to start using your products. But the ones that I was using that go right on the body, I mean, when I woke up on the night, I would put it on and that's what would help me go back to sleep and get out of this. And it was
Yes.
still, I could see the red light, but it would be more on my body, so it wouldn't be coming into my eye.
Right.
But I mean, how much it helped me is just like, I mean, it's the number one tool. Like everyone has to have red light. Like they
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
I
even,
found with
yeah,
I mean, I keep the torch and I keep the pad, I'll grab it. The battery powered pad. This thing I love. Oh my
yes,
God.
I want
And
that
and
right
it's
now.
battery
Yeah,
powered.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
had been keeping the torch on my nightstand, and if I happen to wake in the middle of the night, and then of course the brain can start racing, I would just use the torch right on my gut, like right in my
Yeah,
belly button, and it would
amazing.
just lull me right
Mhm.
back to sleep.
Yeah.
And so that now with the pad, I keep the pad on my nightstand, and if by chance I wake up and I feel like I need it, I'll just put it right on my gut and I just drift right back to sleep. I found my favorite thing with the pad is while I'm flying. Flying
Mhm.
always would absolutely trash me. That environment is just so horrific,
Mhm.
biologically horrific. And so a couple years ago, in traveling, I started using the torch on my gut while I was traveling. I would just throw my jacket over me and use the torch. And then with the development of the pad, so now before I board a flight, I go into the bathroom, I take the pad, I tuck it under my shirt into my waistband, and I board the plane, and I just treat my gut the entire time that I'm flying. Typically, I'm flying to Florida. And so for the entire 3 hours of that flight, I just keep pressing the button and I just
Yeah.
keep treating my gut. So I'm getting a systemic benefit of red light therapy when I'm in an absolutely horrific environment, when I really need something
Mhm.
like red light therapy to help with that dehydration of flying,
Yeah.
being able to use the pad on my gut to stimulate, to help structure the water and to help
Yes.
build that battery of the system in the worst environment it's been an absolute game changer. And that's something I'm telling the athletes all the time. Like, this is the perfect
Yes.
thing to do with all of the travel. And then once you get to the hotel room, roll out the mat and get in the mat and to
Yeah.
offset what damage has just taken place with having to fly.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I love the travel tricks and tools because I mean, gosh, I somehow traveled back when I was in like the worst state of my life. I was popping binders. I had red light on me. I was like massaging my own lymph. I was tapping
Yeah.
myself with a toothpick and like telling, oh my gosh, I've been in some bad situations on planes because again, they are one of the things that like um, they're full of, you're in a metal cage with all of these EMFs like flying at you in all different directions. So like, and it's hard to
Yeah.
ground. So yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I love also the practicality of the torch and the band that you used on the plane. Like, because again, people are stuck in their ways and things just have to be easy. The easier they are, the more you stick to them and then you get the actual benefit of
Right.
these, I don't know, let's call them hacks. You're calling them a supplement. They're not they're like they should be part of our routine, our foundational routine if we can't, especially when we can't get outside. But I'm very excited, like I
Right.
said,
And I mean,
about
in this environment, living in this environment that we're in, we have to take these measures in order
yes,
to offset the
yes,
unfriendly biological environment that we're in. And I don't like to, pump the fear factor of, this doom and gloom. We have a lot of technology and we're very lucky, and is progress, and no one's giving it up. No one is giving it up. So we have to just start to change our way of thinking. And how do we live with this technology? And what things should we do to offset the damage and just take different measures to sort of offset?
yeah, and I'm all for that. I went through probably some of the scariest times, and like I'm not trying to scare people into it, but I started off like it happened to me like that. I started off as a healthy person, but I had all of this stuff coming at me, and my cells couldn't keep up anymore. So we're just trying to give you tips so that you can avoid this if you're not in that state already. But I mean, you're a fountain of knowledge about red light. How can people find you? Tell them your product name again and let's just get your information out there.
It can be found on Instagram. I have two accounts on Instagram. The Quantum Mom that's sort of my account that I like to talk about a lot of things about health and raising healthy families. So that's the Quantum Mom. And then Soleil Well and soleilwell.com is my company website. And Soleil Well on Instagram is where you can find where I put out a lot of content regarding the research around red light therapy. And I'm so fortunate being here in Boston, where I've been invited into this think tank group of world leading photobiomodulation researchers that have become tremendous mentors to me, and they're my sounding board. And so anytime I create something, I'm always going to them and speaking about different things to them. And I'm the only commercially available red light panel company that is invited into this think tank with them. They respect me because of the testing, the rigorous testing, and what's happening, and my commitment in protecting the integrity of the therapy is that there are no regulations within the world of red light therapy, and these are medical grade devices that people are purchasing. And someone that's going on a website or going on Amazon and they're purchasing a red light therapy product, often it's not safe. It has high EMFs and different sorts of things. It may not have the proper wavelengths. It may not have the right intensity to be actually therapeutic. And so what is can happen, and what the fear is with the researchers and with myself, is that the therapy will be efficacy of the therapy will be sort of lessened in the public eye. And it's really, really important. And again, like, that's a big part of why I do what I do, is to protect the integrity of the therapy, because
Mhm.
this is really, really beneficial for everyone. It has no contraindications for anyone.
Mhm.
And where things aren't being regulated, it's the Wild West out there. And we just don't want the therapy to be discounted to people saying, yeah, I ordered something off Amazon and I tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
That, that's sort of where the fear is. And also from the researcher standpoint, we know a lot of research is captured, and a lot of
Mhm.
research is being compromised, and things, different modalities, some information is being suppressed, and it's
Uh-huh.
not, things aren't being studied correctly. And I know from, my relationship with Margaret Nazer, who has published over 100 papers, she's had to excuse herself from some studies because they were so poorly designed, and they were being so manipulated that she just couldn't be part of that pseudoscience that was sort of making a movement to show that red light therapy was not effective.
Mhm.
It's a dedication to the therapy and to the education of the public to
Mhm.
understand and to know what's important when you're choosing a device.
Mhm.
And then also, there's a lot of education in helping people understand how they should be using it. I find, and I'm sure that you probably get these questions as well with patients and with athletes, how do they use it? There's no sort of guidance, and there's no education on how they should be utilizing this therapy to get the ultimate result that they're looking for, and that they will get if they're using it properly.
So what are the wavelengths that people should be looking for? Like, we're educating the consumer. That's what you're doing right now. What are the wavelengths that make it effective and therapeutic?
I always say the more the better, because
Mhm.
sunlight has all of the wavelengths. And so we know from that that's very beneficial. And
Mhm.
it's a lot of it is the blending of wavelengths. So blending a couple of red spectrum into with a couple of near infrared spectrum. And I like to mix wavelengths as well. And I sort of step outside the box than some other companies, because I have access to some information and some of the Russian research that points to some different wavelengths.
Mhm.
And so the more wavelengths in a device, the better. All of my panels have 4 to 5 wavelengths. My custom panel has 5 wavelengths. My standard wavelength panel has 4 wavelengths, and the mat has 4 wavelengths, but the torch has 5 wavelengths. And so the more wavelengths, typically the better. In the torch, I added in an 810 nanometer wavelength, which has been shown in research. The brain loves 810 nanometer. It's a
Mhm.
very deep red, near infrared wavelength that the brain responds to really, really well. And so that's why I added that into the torch. I
Mhm.
also have that in the custom panel as well. So, different I a lot of times in research they focus on one wavelength. I think going forward they're going to start understanding that it's blending of multiple wavelengths where you're really able to get great effects. I would also say that research has always talked about this biphasic dose response, which has held people back from, and you and I had this conversation, and it was interesting that you had the same thought process that I did. Was I'm finding having patients and athletes, the more red light therapy they're doing and the more intense they're doing, the more beneficial it is. And that
Mhm.
just speaks to the deficit, the absolute photonic deficit that we are in as humans, especially someone like an athlete, that their environment isn't the best,
Yeah.
and their training is just so depleting. And so they're requiring a lot more red light therapy than what we initially would have thought.
Mhm.
So pushing the limits on that has been really, really interesting. Also understanding that different skin colors, different Fitzpatrick skin types, more melanated skin requires a lot more red light therapy because that melanin is going to absorb all of those wavelengths on the surface, not getting that deeper penetration depth. So I'm finding with my athletes when I'm meeting with them and talking with them, and with my patients, not just the athletes, but how much melanin is in your skin. That is going to dictate how much red light therapy you need. I have some patients with very melanated skin, and they're doing a lot more red light therapy, and they're finding tremendous benefits. There are a lot of things that need to be taken into account when we're talking about how much red light therapy someone needs. And then there's the systemic dose of light, which would come from a panel or something like the mat. A systemic dose of light would be depending, it could be once to twice a day,
Mhm.
depending on who you are and what the circumstance is. And that could be 3 to 5 to 7 days a week. Whereas a localized dose of light, so on an area that is compromised, so, if you have a wrist injury, using
Mhm.
something like the torch directly on the skin, I'm finding there to be no upper limit. When you're doing a localized dose of light, I mean, I've had injuries and I've used this torch 10 times, just 10
Okay.
times in a row, and that's where things
Mhm.
started to change. Localized dosing of light and systemic dosing of light can look very different, and I have no fears in pushing the limits on
Mhm.
more red light as opposed to less red light because it's very patient specific and it's very tissue specific
Mhm.
how much light you're actually using.
Yeah. Some people say to avoid like the thyroid area, but I use it on it and I've seen it in patients like bringing down the thyroid numbers and like people like don't use it on your head because they're scared to
Mhm.
like detox people, right? But we've had people who could only handle tiny doses of red light because they were so toxic, right? Because your
Right,
cells start to feel safer and then
right,
they release. So like, you can grade it up, but you still need it. It's just your body's overreacting to everything or
right.
releasing too much, right? So it's not causing harm even when you feel like that. You just have to find your dose that you can handle and slowly build from there. Maybe try some binders, in my opinion, because those are what helped me so much is whenever anything kind of pushed the needle a little bit too much. So yeah, I think
Right.
that not being scared of it after that, but just slowly grading it up. I just had someone, he went straight to like a full body panel, not one that I had suggested. He already had it and he was like scared to use it. I felt like I go start like with a very short amount of time on a smaller body part, like don't turn on all three panels or and he's been able to grade up. So just knowing that, it's not that you don't need it or it's bad for you. It's just that it's the
Right.
body is starting to respond, right? And not just be in the shutdown mode, which yeah, it's crazy what's going on with people's bodies. I've never seen this and even what I went through. So,
Mhm.
we need these tools more than ever. If you get them
Right.
before you feel bad, then you avoid the torture that some of us went through. But thank you so much
Yeah.
for your passion into this topic and sharing it with us. Like, I really appreciate your time, and I hope people follow you and use your machines and your tools. And I think we have a discount code for them for after this podcast, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's been activated on my
Yes.
on my website.
It
Yeah.
has. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can use that to get a discount on these amazing products and make sure you give a review and let us know how you feel and what changes it makes because then it just helps us get the word out there as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was really fun and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.